everyone, my name is Sarena, and so this past summer I picked up a new hobby that I've been wanting to try for a while, photography. And so the MLC lets you rent out free cameras. So I was able to stay in Athens this past summer, and that was what I did. I basically, for every single week, I would pick out a new camera to rent out so that I could learn how to do photography. Now, you could say that photography runs in my family. My father and my grandfather really like doing photography, and I also have a relative who lives in France who is a freelance photographer. You might think that photography is a hobby that every single teenager and young adult delves in nowadays, and that is absolutely right. But for me, I just really like being able to see snapshots of aesthetic things. So, the first thing I learned when I was doing photography was that photography is not as easy as I thought. This is what the first 20 of my pictures turned out to be like. So, as you know, a DSLR has automatic mode, which basically means you can just point and shoot. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to learn more advanced things, because when I was a kid, I did have a point and shoot camera. And I used this point and shoot camera for things like vlogs, and then I realized that my phone actually had better video quality than my point and shoot camera, so I never touched my point and shoot camera ever again. And so, in the past year, I've learned a few tips, and I'm only going to have time to teach you guys a few of these tips for photography in case you guys are ever curious in getting into this hobby. So these three things are exposure, posing, and props. So the first thing I'm going to tell you guys about is the exposure triangle. And so exposure is another fancy word for lighting, basically. You have ISO, you have shutter speed, and then you have aperture. And in different situations, you need to use each of these three things in order to balance out and make the perfect picture that you want. And for example, if you are in an indoor setting and you want to have more light in your picture, because obviously if you take a picture, it's going to turn out really dark, then what you need to do is adjust each of the three settings. So for ISO, you would want to have a higher ISO. For shutter speed, you would want a lower shutter speed. And then for aperture, you would want a lower aperture. So to go more into depth about these three, here are some examples. So shutter speed, this is an example of how shutter speed works. And the way I think about this, I don't know if this is technically the right way to think about it, but the fraction, I think of it as like a fraction of a second. So 1/500 is a faster shutter speed. So I think of it as like 1/500 of a second. So that makes something really fast. And if you want to capture a moving object, for example a car, or if you want someone or you're taking a picture of someone who's running, and you want to capture them really crisply, you would use a high shutter speed. 1/30 is like the medium range that you can have, and then 1/4 is when you want to see all the motions that come within a certain amount of movement. So for example, if you are taking a picture of a waterfall, then you might want to use a lower shutter speed because you can capture the movement of the water, and you see this really nice white water coming through. And then for ISO, this is how it works. ISO is usually the last thing that you need to worry about when it comes to camera quality, because the thing is, if you make your ISO too high, then there's going to be a lot of noise. And what noise is basically kind of like pixels. So the quality of the image isn't as good if you use a higher ISO. However, you do need to use a higher ISO if you want to have brighter pictures. And then the next thing I'm going to talk about is aperture. So aperture is one of my favorite things to use in photography. So as you can see here, the lower the aperture, the more you have a blur in the background. And then over here you have a 50mm lens, and then you have an aperture of 4 as opposed to 1.2. And so the lower the aperture, the more you have the blur in the background, and this is a technique that is commonly used for portrait pictures. So you can get that nice blur when someone is taking a professional picture of you or something like that. And then this is a cool technique if you guys want to go ahead and pull out your phones, I'm not sure if this works for Android, but it does work for iPhone. So what you can do is you can actually change the exposure on your phones if you haven't figured this out already. But basically what you do is you click on whatever you want to be focused on. So you'll see this yellow box when that happens. And then after you have clicked a part to focus on, remove your finger and then press on any part of the screen again and then go up or down. And then you'll see the exposure starting to change. Is that working for you guys? Yeah? Yeah. So that's another way for you to use exposure on your phone if you don't have a DSLR, because I know that DSLRs are quite expensive to have. As for posing, the rule of thumb I have for you guys is that the closer you are to a subject, if you just want to take a picture of their face, is to have it from a higher angle. So, like this. And then, if you want to take a picture of someone from far away, or from closer up, but you want a full body picture, you want to go from down here. And this will make someone look taller and leaner. And then the third thing I have for you is props. So props can really elevate your pictures and make them look extra unique. So here is a technique called smoke bombs, which you can buy on Amazon. You can also use fairy lights. You can use this cool thing called steel wool. And so basically you light the steel wool on fire and then you rotate it around a lot and then you use a very low shutter speed. And then you can also use rainbows by using a CD or a prism. But last but not least, if all else fails and you want a really cool picture, just use the app Fuji. I'm sure you see it all over Instagram, but it basically makes your pictures look really retro and vintage and cool. So those are the techniques I have for you guys today, but if you're interested in getting more into photography, I would definitely recommend looking up other techniques as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarena. And for the new faces I see in the group, this is the time where you get out that little sheet and you write down anything that you think she can improve upon or anything she's done well under first speaker. So you can talk about how she used the space in the room. You could talk about her tone of voice. You could talk about the speed, or if you understood what she was going through, and if you've actually learned anything, if it was intriguing and captivating. There are many things for you to speak about on this. And while you guys fill that out, I'd like to tell you about our second speaker, which is Jian. And his speech is titled World Peace. It is 5-7 minutes, and it is the third speech from the Compton Speaker's Manual. Please, okay, please let me introduce Jian.
Who in here wants a better world? If you do, raise your hand. Who in here, after class ends, you quickly go to the bus, hopefully that you can get on first to go to your next class? No one does that? Do you all walk? Okay, I guess that was not what I expected. But who in here rides the bus when it's crowded? And do you sit or stand? Stand? But who prefers sitting? Okay. So, well, that took a, okay. So, the secret to world peace can be examined through the perspective of riding a bus. Personally, I like taking small, abstract things and use those to turn it as a life experience. Because small events in life speaks volume. So, this is the thing with riding the bus. Personally, every day after class ends, I quickly rush to the bus ramp and hopefully, I fight against everyone and push them all out of the way to get in first. And if I do get in first, I will quickly grab a seat to prevent anyone from taking it. And then you see a bunch of people standing up. And I put on my headphones, close my eyes, and pretend I see nothing. That is the error in humanity. Because we're so focused on ourselves that we ignore our surrounding. If each one of us, instead of focus on getting the seat in the bus and just offer it to someone else, wouldn't that be a good representative of our human nature, the kindness and compassion that we all possess? But unfortunately, there's always those people, everyone, on a crowded bus, you see everyone sitting down and then you see those standing up. But where's the chivalry of guys offering their seats to girls? That doesn't happen anymore. Why? Because guys probably think, oh, it's the 21st century. Woman independence. But personally, I believe that no matter if you're a guy or girl, we should all offer a seat, even if the person doesn't want it. But because we're too afraid to ask. So I sit on the bus and I'm thinking, should I offer this person the seat in front of me? Because I personally don't need it, but so many eyes are watching. So I refrain from doing that. I'm not sure how many of you have these problems, or some of you probably never think about it, because we're sitting there contently. And so, if everyone in this world, when you get on a bus, instead of sitting and you just stand, you don't have to think about those issues, because you don't have to fight or think about who to give your seat, who to ask. But for those who are already sitting, are you okay with just sitting on that bus while there are other people standing? Why don't you lend a hand and say, hey, would you like my seat? And this one event can be extrapolated into different things in life. We walk downtown every day, go hang out with friends, and we see all these homeless people sitting there. But what are our thoughts when we cross them? We talk with our friends, we laugh, and we chatter. But those people just watch and examine us. Do we offer to lend a hand? No. Do we offer to hear their story of how they got to where they are, or just to share our experience with them, or to hear their experience? No. And that's why this world, I'm not saying that we're all terrible human beings without compassion. We do. But sometimes the hardest thing is taking an action. We want to help them, but we just don't know how. We blame it on the fact that, oh, we're college students. We can't support them, and we support one person. What about all these other people who we can't support? And so all these problems just run through my mind as to, what can I do? What should I do? But like most people, I took the cowardly route. I just ignore it and pretend it doesn't, I have nothing to do with it. And so I started this course of meditation. Get into a room silently and just sit and think about problems. Look inwards and reflect about my values. And so what I recently tried doing is that every time I get on a bus, what I do is instead of taking a seat, I just stand because I know someone else can take it. And then when I try to go downtown, if I have a chance, find someone and listen to their story. No matter what, just say, hey, would you like to go to this place and eat with me? And then just talk, interact. Sure, there's that feeling of, oh, we're looking down on them. But that's their mindset, and it's wrong. We're trying to help, and we want to help. So what I encourage all of you to do today is not, you don't have to always do it, but just sometimes think about these problems in society. Think about ourselves. What do we value, and what do we respect, so we can help others? And when we go downtown, it's okay we can't help them, but just sometimes try to offer your time. Because we have a lot of that. We're young, immature, inexperienced, and that's why we're in college. But, just take some time and meditate on this. And yeah, that's my story, and I just want you all to think about this. It's the act of thinking, and use your mindset. And let go of what's holding you back. Thank you.
Wow, a touching, heartfelt story. It really tugs at your heartstrings. It makes you empathetic, introspective. But honestly, as soon as you're like, what do you think when you walk by the homeless people downtown? I think about the first time I went downtown. Oh wait, take this moment to fill out your ballots as far as I speaker, please. Okay, thank you. So while you do that, I'm going to tell you this pretty hilarious story. It's not hilarious, it's traumatizing, but it's hilarious to other people. It was the very first time I went downtown, and I was at this fountain, just walking by, and then I was just like, oh, I'm going to take a seat. I was with one other friend, and there was a homeless guy sitting on the other side of the fountain, and then she made eye contact with me, like my friend, and she was like, Nadia, turn around. I was like, bro, what's going on? Like, why I gotta turn around? I turned around, and I was like, there's just a man there. She's like, okay, turn around and look down. The man just so happened to be exposing himself and doing an indecent act, making eye contact with us too. It was really uncomfy, pretty traumatizing experience. Only went downtown 3 more times after that. So every time I pass someone, homeless person downtown, I'm like, oh my God, is that you? Please leave me alone. So that's what I'm thinking. Thanks. Okay, so I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Tricia Perez, and her speech is an icebreaker, so it's one of her first. It's 4 to 6 minutes, and it's titled, What is in a Name? Please give her full attention.
In a name. Anna Beatrice, Tricia Buragay Perez, Anna Perez, Tricia Perez, Anna Beatrice Buragay Perez. Those are just some of the variations I've had to deal with regarding my name. And for some it might be a little too confusing, others a little preposterous to having to constantly think about the different ways you can present yourself to another person. But let me tell you my story. So I was born in the Philippines, and my parents immigrated here when I was just a kid. And we would move. First we arrived in New York, Georgia the first time, then Kansas. And so Kansas was where I had the first experience and encounter introducing myself to other people. It was preschool, elementary, and back then I'd go by Anna. Then I'd moved to Georgia, and this is the second time here. And my mom asked me, what name do you want to go by? And I'm thinking to myself, I've had some experience being called Anna. Let me try going by my nickname, give it a couple tries, and then after a couple years, we'd move, and I'd just go back to Anna. Well, fast forward 10 years, I'm still in Georgia, and the nickname stuck, so it's carried on. But that's not the only part. Middle school, and really every single year, I'd have the joy, first it was embarrassment, and then it was the joy of stopping the teacher in the middle of the roll call and saying, excuse me, miss, I go by Tricia, and then seeing the confusion on their face, like, what, Tricia? On the roll call I see Anna Beatrice, where do you get that? Well, when I was first born, my dad, it was the choice between the nickname Bea from Beatrice or Tricia from the last part, and he hated the nickname Bea, so Tricia stuck. And middle school, it's the first time that I've had experience with learning another language. So Spanish, I chose Spanish. And then again, there'd be that extra explanation And the Spanish teacher would say, "Oh, Perez, where's your family from?" "Oh, no, sorry, we don't speak Spanish in my household. I'm actually from the Philippines." And then they'd know, the teacher would know about the history and background, but then I'd have to explain to the whole class, yes, Philippines was conquered by the Spanish. And no, I haven't taken a DNA test, so I might have some European blood in me. I might not, who knows. But in Spanish class, I go by Beatrice, the second part of my first name. But not only that, it's also given me a little bit of thinking to myself and like, what name do I want to go? What name do I want to go by? So I've had the experience of introducing myself and changing my name, or really going by my nickname as Tricia. But in high school, the bus driver, he was a really kind person, and he would take the time to learn everybody's names. But the thing is, he'd go by the official roster on the list. And so every morning, every afternoon, he'd say, "Hey, Anna, how's your day been?" And I'd reply, "Yeah, it's been okay." In the beginning, I did contemplate kindly correcting him. It's like thinking, I appreciate you taking the time to learn my name, but really, everyone else calls me Tricia. But days went by, days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months turned into years, and come senior year, it's towards the end, almost graduation, and my friend thought of, why don't you, as the last day sort of present, why don't you correct him and say, you've been calling me the wrong name. And I was like, it'd be like a little bit funny just to see the reaction. Like 4 years, that's a long time to go calling someone the wrong name. But I thought to myself, what's the wrong name? I mean, Anna is part of my name. It's my legal name, and sure, everyone else calls me Tricia, but it's still part of my name. And it wasn't until my first experience using my own money to go on the Chick-fil-A line, get a to-go sandwich, the original with pickles and fries and lemonade, the whole ordeal. And the cashier comes and says, "And what name would you like to go with that order?" I stumbled briefly for a second, and then reflexively, almost out of nowhere, said, "Anna." Wow, Anna. Everyone's been calling me Tricia for the past decade, yet what came out of my mouth was Anna. And why did that happen? I think back, and it might be because I liked being reminded every now and then that Tricia isn't my only name. And ever since then, when it comes time to the Chick-fil-A line, Starbucks line, and what name would you like to go with that order? Anna. Now, my journey with my name definitely came with first a little embarrassment having to correct the teacher, and then some little dilemmas with what else, standardized testing, and they ask you to bubble your name, or here in college they ask you to bubble in your name on ELC, but then I forget what name is on ELC. Is it Tricia? Is it Anna Beatrice? But besides that, I think for me it's come to a point where it's given me some joy, some laughter, but ultimately as a source of pride. Because, one, it's a great conversation starter. How often do you get the chance to say, "Hey, my name is Anna Beatrice, but you can call me Tricia"? "Oh wait, where does Tricia come from?" "Well, let me tell you," and yada yada yada, the story. It's also a point where I can explain its cultural significance and my background as a Filipino and the history behind that with the Spanish conquering. And who knows, one day if I get married, I'll be changing and adding on another name, this time to the end. But that's another decision for another future time. But as for now, I'm content being Anna Beatrice, Tricia, Buragay, Perez. And when anyone asks me, that's my name. Thank you.
Please fill out the ballots for the third speaker, as well as choosing best speaker. Honestly, I totally understand the whole name thing. Like, personally, my last name is Dowlatkhah. It's pronounced Dowlatkhah. And I'm an Army ROTC, and they have to call me by my last name. and it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. One time they saw me wearing a Cowboys jacket, and now they just call me Cowboy. So, yeah, my name does not work. They ask me where it's from, and then I'm like, oh, it's Azerbaijani, and they're like, okay, cool. And I have to like explain, oh, Azerbaijani, it's the part of Iran that didn't secede, or it's a part of Azerbaijan that didn't secede from Iran. You know, they're not the Russian one, so stop asking me if I'm Russian. I know my name's Nadia. My parents try to make it simple, but still, people tend to mispronounce that too. It happens. It happens.